Assalamu alaikum. In this lesson, you're going to be learning about the rules of Nun Sakin and Tanween. But before that, let's just quickly recite this dua and then we'll get started straight away. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Okay, now let's get started. Before I start telling you about the rules of Nun Sakin and Tanween, what is tajweed? Well, tajweed is a subject, and it's just like any other subject that you study at school, like maths, English, whatever. But in tajweed, what we learn is that we learn the rules of how to recite the Quran Sharif properly. Oh my god, look, I just made a mistake. Let me just fix that quickly. There you go. Okay, now you know what tajweed does have other meanings, but you don't need to know about that at the moment. Maybe some other lesson I might cover, inshallah. Now let's get started. Oh, why are you disturbing me?
I was looking for my keys. My bike keys.
Okay, before I start talking about the rules of Nun Sakin and Tanween, let me just tell you what is Nun Sakin and what is Tanween. Well, Tanween is pretty easy. I'm sure you've seen it before. It's this, that, and this. With Dui Zabar, Dui Zer, and Dui Pesh, actually the proper names for it is Fathatan, Kasratan, and Dhammatan. I'm probably going to be using these terms from now, so you might as well learn them as well. Fathatan, Kasratan, and Dhammatan. And Nun Sakin, what is Nun Sakin? First of all, this little circle thing, or this triangle thing, or something like this moon thing, you might see in the Quran Sharif sometimes. This is a sukoon. And any letter that has this sukoon, we call it a sakin. So for example, we might have this mim, and this is a sakin. This is another sakin, and this is another sakin. But how do we tell the difference between this sakin, and this sakin? Well, this is a nun sakin, this is a mim sakin, and this is a ba sakin. So now you know what nun sakin is. What we can say is we can do this. For example, I could have sukoon plus this nun is equal to nun sakin. So now you know what nun sakin is, and you know what tanween is as well. Now let's get started with the rules. If you're a bit confused at the moment about what are these rules of nun sakin, these rules of tanween, what is in the Quran Sharif, anytime that you see a nun sakin or a tanween, depending on what comes after it, we have to read it in a certain way. Let me just show you two examples before we start talking about the rules. For example, so this is man amana, and this is fa in fa'alta. As you can see, there's a nun sakin here, and there's a nun. Let me just change the color actually. As you can see, there's a nun sakin here, and there's a nun sakin here. After this nun sakin, a hamza came, and after this nun sakin, a fa came. So because a hamza came after the nun sakin here, we're just going to read it very clearly, and we're just going to read man amana. And here, because a fa came, we're not going to read it clearly. This time, what we're going to do is we're going to read it hide. Well, we're going to hide and read it, and I'll just read it to you. We're going to read it as fa in fa'alta, man amana fa in fa'alta. Do you see? Depending on what comes after the nun sakin or a tanween, we have to read it differently. Oh, just one more thing as well, just to know. Why is it that we learn the rules of nun sakin and tanween together? Why? How is nun sakin and tanween similar? Well, that's not actually too hard. Let me just show you. Let me just show you. You'll understand. It's actually quite easy. Bear with me. Let me just write this up. Okay, now it should start making sense. Start reading these, and you'll see. Do you see? We have ban, bin, bun, bun. Why is that nun? Is tanween just gives a nun sound, so that's why their rules are the same, because they both make the same sound. Okay, now we can actually start getting started with what the rules of nun sakin and tanween are. So as you know, depending on what comes after the nun sakin or tanween, we have a different rule. We have to apply a different rule and read it in a certain way. And there are 5 rules that you need to know about. There are 5 rules of nun sakin and tanween, and they are: The first one is izhar. The second one is ikhfa. The next one is idgham ma'al ghunna. The fourth is idgham bila ghunna. And we have iqlab. Okay, the first rule I'm going to tell you about is izhar, obviously. That's the first rule. I'm also going to tell you what it means. You don't have to know what it means, it's not that important, but it's nice to know. And izhar means to make clear. And you'll see that it also makes a lot of sense afterwards, because the meaning is related to the rule. Also, what you need to know is you'll see that each of these rules have a set of letters, and depending on which letter comes after the nun sakin or tanween, we read it a certain way. So if, say, the letters of izhar, they came after nun sakin or tanween, then we'd have to read the nun sakin or tanween with izhar. And if, say, the letters of ikhfa came after nun sakin or tanween, then we'd have to read the nun sakin or tanween with ikhfa. So the letters of izhar are hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghayn, and kha. Now, the best way to show you is with examples. Again, I'm going to use the example that I used before. Man amana. And another example, this time I'll choose a tanween example. Say no, not azabun alim. Just rub that out. Let's choose alimun hakim. Now, if you look at these, let me just change the color quickly. If you look at this example, you see there's a nun sakin here and there's a tanween right here. Now, what we need to do is we need to see what came after the nun sakin, what came after the tanween. So after this nun sakin, a hamza came, and we know that hamza is a letter of izhar because it's right here. And after this tanween, you'll see that, oh, a ha came, and we know that ha is also a letter of izhar. So what we have to do is we have to read this nun sakin and this tanween with izhar. What does that mean? That means is that we have to read this nun sakin or tanween clearly without ghunna. What is ghunna? Ghunna is the sound that comes from your nose. When you say like that sound that comes from your nose, that's called ghunna. And we know it comes from your nose because if you try and pinch your nose and say it, you can't say it, and it stops the moment you pinch your nose. So if any of the letters of izhar come after nun sakin or tanween, then we have to read the nun sakin or tanween clearly without ghunna. Example: man amana alimun hakim. You can't read man amana or alimun hakim, because if you do that, you're making ghunna and you're going to be reading it wrong. So remember that if any of the letters of izhar come after nun sakin or tanween, we have to read the nun sakin or tanween clearly without ghunna. Man amana alimun hakim. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. I don't care if I'm being patronizing. It is if any of the letters of izhar come after nun sakin or tanween, we have to read the nun sakin or tanween clearly without ghunna. Man amana alimun hakim. I'm going to end the video right here because it's getting a bit long, and I promised you guys that I would keep the video short. In the next video, inshallah, we're going to be covering ikhfa, idgham ma'al ghunna, idgham bila ghunna, and iqlab, and that will be everything to do with nun sakin and tanween. So that's all.